Dynamite download.
AEW 2020, John Silver.
Special event, as you can see, SPD.
For a splashing good time. January recruitment.
I come along, I come along in the ring.
I would not want to hear that. I would not
Welcome to Dynamite Download.
Welcome, everybody, to AEW Dynamite Download, your home for all positive coverage on All Elite Wrestling. You got your boy Crayfish here getting cray up in this. You got SPD representing on the West Coast, East Coast, West Coast, anybody in between. Thank you for joining us for episode 35. SPD, let's throw up those match results because AEW Dynamite had some tape segments tonight. Jam-packed as always. They crammed so much into Dynamite, and what a blessing it is they're going to get a second show because I feel like they're going to be able to space some of this out, let it breathe. But, brother, you and I feel like we can barely catch our breath right now. So let's get into it. Throw those match results up real quick.
You're not kidding, man. I mean, you can tell the difference between a tape show and a live show, and they both have pros and cons to each one of them for sure. But like the amount of pure promos and segments and amount of just pure talent that we saw here was just amazing. It was just outstanding show from top to bottom. I mean, we started with the bang and kept the momentum going. It was a rare occasion. We saw it a few weeks ago, but we did see two women's matches on the card tonight. A lot of stipulations on both of them, a return of someone, a championship match setting it up, and then some more feuds developing and ended with a bang. And did it ever, man? And whew, it's a hot show for sure, to say the least.
No doubt about it. And SPD, I know the way that this Dynamite started off, you had to be grinning ear to ear. Dating back from when we first saw Matt Sydal make his way into AEW, you were taken back by him. I mean, I've been a fan of Evan Bourne from his previous life. But I think that he's bringing, now that he's got that veteran, all that experience under his belt, I think that he's really coming into his own, and he realizes he doesn't just need to be a high flyer. Matt Sydal has a lot of ability beyond just being able to do flips, being an acrobat in the ring. He's actually a very smart wrestler, and I think that his path has got him to a place where he can go toe-to-toe with a vet like Christian Cage, a man who has really been at the top of the mountain and hold his own. I thought that Matt Sydal versus Christian Cage was a great way to start this show. Obviously, our lead writer, Booking by Bonds, he's going to be geeking out to talk about the post-match antics of this one because he's such a Team Taz mark. He's such a Team Taz fanboy. But the actual match itself was a real showcase for two industry veterans who really I feel like it was really well fought. Christian kind of showed, as JR pointed out, showed a little bit of heel tendencies in tonight's match, showed a little extra aggression, showed a little extra, tenacity, a little bit of fire in his belly in this one. I think that Christian certainly came into this one with a lot to prove. People are challenging him. That moniker has people, I think some of the vets in the back has people has a little rubbing them the wrong way.
That's a good point.
He came out here tonight really using his size to his advantage, really leaning into some of his moves tonight, and almost played a bully role at certain points in this match versus Matt Sydal. I was surprised to see that out of Christian tonight, but it was a pleasant surprise. What were some of your thoughts from this match, SPD? Because I know Matt Sydal has been a guy that you feel is underappreciated in the AEW landscape, one of the underrated signings. And when you talk about big signings, Christian has been the marquee one. So what was your thoughts on this one?
First and foremost, it was it's always great to hear Taz on commentary. He really adds another level of dynamic and hilarity and like really in-depth wrestling knowledge too. So I really like the way he explains moves and how it was saying how Christian Cage is really working on the different moves, the back, and different things like that. So I absolutely love it, man. Such a great dynamics in the matches. I wish he was on commentary the full 2 hours in the show, but this was, like you said, two veterans really working each other. Great chemistry in the ring. It wasn't, let's say, unfortunately, it was a main event quality match, but it was a great way to open and a great story told throughout the show and a great story told after the match. I really like that aspect where you're saying how Cage kind of has a target on his back, and by Team Taz for sure.
No doubt.
That makes a lot of sense for that. But I do agree, man. Seidel is very underrated, underappreciated. He's not the biggest guy, but he can work with, we saw with Kenny Omega, he can work with, so many different styles, really adaptable, really a chameleon worker. I love that. But, after the fact, it's good to see that Ricky Starks is doing really well. Clearly,
Go ahead, give us the obligatory Ricky Starks. Yeah.
But you're absolute crayfish, bro. You're absolute crayfish. I'm powerhouse SPD.
I gotta say, man, like Ricky Starks coming out and cutting that promo tonight was much needed. There was so much speculation on how long Ricky Starks would be on the shelf. A lot of people who were kind of worried about, anytime you hear neck injury in professional wrestling, that opens up your eyes and gets you worried. And Ricky Starks is one of those guys, man. His star power is such a breath of fresh air every time he's on the screen. The dude just oozes star power. And what a promo he cut.
Stud.
That Team Taz beatdown that they gave was something else. Huh? I mean, that post match. They really sent the message to, I feel like, all of AEW. I mean, we've been talking about this for a while, right? Like, is Team Taz going to fall apart? What's going to happen to them? And all these things. And with Ricky Starks' neck injury, it was almost okay. This group's falling. This group's breaking apart. It's just going to happen. After this type of post-match beatdown that they gave, with how strong they look and how smooth they look together, how polished this crew look, you would have never guessed that they had all this inner turmoil just a few weeks ago, right? I mean, they looked like they were a well-polished, well-oiled machine, no?
They absolutely needed this. At first when Hangman came out and then started getting the upper hand, and then when House, Flash, Cage, I was like, oh gosh, is this going to turn into one of those like laughing stocks of Team Taz? And then it ended great, because you have Brian Cage standing tall once again. And I think that was perfectly booked to really expand it. And I absolutely loved when the Dark Order blocked, or no, that was for the Ethan Page, the other one. But when he handed him the drink and came out.
When Hangman came out and handed Ricky Starks his drink, hold my beer, but it was bourbon this time around. Hold my whiskey. He goes in there and he basically was playing the save. And it didn't work out that way for him, did it? I mean, it certainly.
No, and it's a good setup for
Go ahead,
good setup for coming up, and I think Ricky Starks, as we talked about before, how Stone Cold and Angle were injured, but they were featured because, when they were featured, it was pure gold, and they didn't have to be in the ring. And this is going to be a perfect example for someone who has got it all in Ricky Starks, and for him to get more face time and more fans to either love or hate him. You're going to grow to love him no matter what, even if you do hate him. More and more on the mic. He's going to be out of the ring recovering, and he's just going to grow, maybe be more of the face of Team Taz. Maybe he'll start his own faction and be the leader of that until he gets back. I think you could see that.
He certainly has leader vibes, right? I mean,
for sure.
Especially when you look at the way that this team is constructed. Cage and Hobbs are very much the type of guys who prefer to let their actions speak for themselves. Those guys are powerhouses, and they're the machines. For a reason. They just a wrecking crew. So it's good to have a mouthpiece like Starks, and this could end up being one of those things that works out for their advantage, right? I mean, what better way to draw heat than to have a guy constantly chirping and running his mouth off, but not being able to get physical because he has a legitimate neck injury. And then you don't want, no baby face is going to want to touch Starks because you're going to oh man, you're going after a guy with a broken freaking neck. It could work, man. This could really work if they lean into Ricky Starks playing up the neck injury, playing to his strengths with, him yapping, using that mouth of his. He's gold on the mic. I think that could be a really nice movement for Team Taz to kind of go down that path. It was also really cool seeing Hook get physical again, man. I think that this young
It was the
kid,
most I've seen him physical.
Yeah, he threw a nice little T-bone suplex in honor of his dad. I feel like Hook is slowly kind of emerging as a guy who more and more people want to see a little bit, see like those little peaks of physicality. I love that, kind of get that dirtbag cheek attack, the sneak attacks in there here and there. I really liked that vibe. And the way that this one was playing out throughout, it really is setting the stage for the Battle Royal. Christian Cage clearly, came in when he first debuted. Christian Cage had his eyes on Kenny Omega. He made it very clear he wanted a title shot. You and I have talked about, if you're going to book Kenny Omega's title reign, Christian could be one of those guys who could get a shot at Kenny and not lose anything if he were to lose to Kenny, right? He's such an established vet. So, Christian has to enter this Battle Royal as an odds-on favorite. But, we talked about Brian Cage beating the number one contender in Hangman Adam Page and doing so convincingly. Brian Cage has already had a long history of coming up big in these matches, where he won the chip, right? He won that big chip for a title shot in the ladder match. Brian Cage does come up big in these big moments. So I have a feeling, Team Taz is starting to build their momentum going into the Battle Royal. Christian Cage is clearly emerging as a favorite. And Adam Page, if he's entering this Battle Royal, this could be finally where we've all been saying, he was the number one contender. He got knocked off his perch as the top guy. If he wins this one, there's no way around it. This guy is getting his title shot. So a lot of interesting storylines going into the Battle Royal. I think that one's going to be one of those matches that AEW fans are going to get a treat. Double or Nothing, this card is absolutely stacked.
I can't wait for us to do a Double or Nothing preview show next week because there's all a bunch of different stuff. We're going to do a preview show, talk a lot about this at Friday Night Fights this Friday, really do some nice card predictions. So that's going to be some fun stuff, man. Is it ever a stacked card? Wow. And, leading up to this announcement, this was the match I was looking forward to the most because I am all on the mic drop. Acclaim train, baby. Thanks to you, bro. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I mean, everything about them just exudes like star power. They are great chemistry together. They have a great dynamic, great look together. The typical heel coming out, throwing the low blows, the low jabs, and then using potentially weapons to win on this. So I think his intro, Caster's mic drop in the beginning was just so great, tying into cheap heat going against the wife. Yes.
Oh man, as Bonds
you're eating that up.
Bonds put it really. I mean, that's a softball, but I mean, it was like that was a layup, and that is that was right there. And for a guy who's as creative and funny and just like not afraid to push the boundaries and kind of like give you those oh shit moments. Max Caster, you knew he was going to go in on that moment, and he did, and he hit it out of the park with that pre-match battle, that rap. Caster is so creative and so funny. I love his stuff, and he and Bowens have really emerged as a team that I feel like fans are chomping at the bit to see these guys week in and week out, whether it's Dark, whether it's Dynamite, whether it's just following them on Twitter. Anytime you get an opportunity to like interact with these guys and see what they're capable of, they are constantly on point, and there's no wonder why everybody loves the Acclaim. They are absolutely killing it. I was intrigued.
You said it.
Like their all talk battle rap that they did earlier in the week. They dropped that early in the week.
I love that too, man.
I was digging that.
Fire.
I was really intrigued by how Moxley and Kingston were going to respond. They had Kingston and Mox had their little rebuttal in their little promo where basically they downplayed the Acclaim. They said, Kingston was talking about how it's basically a rapper and his friend, just kind of like discarding Bowens a little bit, and it became very clear very early on, especially after that dig by Caster, that this was going to be physical. This one was going to be one of those matches where, that Kingston and Mox were going to let their physicality do the talking for them. And boy, did they ever. I mean, Moxley was laying some stiff chops. I know you had to love that. Moxley was laying some stiff chops in. Obviously, Kingston has kind of fallen into the Ricky Morton of this tag team, where he's the guy who's always getting beaten up during the matches.
Right.
He's always the guy who's kind of getting that, like, allowing the other team to build up their momentum, and then he'll make that hot tag to legitimately one of the top stars in the world, John
the Wild
Moxley.
Thing, baby.
The Wild Thing. So I felt like that formula is starting to play out, and it's working really well for them. Moxley is at the top of his game. And clearly now they have emerged as the number one contenders for the tag team titles, and they're going to get that shot at Double or Nothing.
Yep.
After beating the Acclaimed, who have been, in that top 5 for a long time, I can understand, and with how personal and how hot this rivalry between Moxley, Kingston, and the Elite has been, I think it makes a lot of sense to lean into that. Although, if you're following Dax on Twitter like I am, my man has said he's going to quit now. He's quitting pro wrestling because because Moxley and Kingston have jumped FTR and gotten at the top of the line. FTR makes a great point. They've never got a rematch against the Bucks since they dropped the titles all those months ago. And we as fans absolutely know that those guys delivered. That FTR versus Young Bucks match was an absolute classic. So I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of eyes on this match at Double or Nothing, not only from a fan base perspective, but from the locker room's perspective. After what we saw later on in tonight's main event with the Varsity Blondes, the way that the Bucks have been winning these matches, their cheap shots and things like that, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be chomping at the bit to see what happens in that title match and want a shot for those tag title belts. The Acclaimed, even though they came up short in this match,
they look great.
I feel like the Acclaimed have solidified themselves as a legitimate tag team who can and should get a title run down the line. They have the charisma in the ring, in and outside of the ring. They, like you talked about, SPD, they're very polished together. The way those two work together seems just very, very smooth. You've talked about it in the past. Bowens is that guy who's that powerhouse, a believable enforcer. And then you got Caster, who is the loudmouth. It really works well.
You need
man.
that.
It's a nice pairing.
You're absolutely right. And you saw that diamond very early on, and I was not on the Acclaim train, and I'm totally on the Acclaim train. That double suplex crossbody off the top of the Acclaimed, was great. First suplex off the top, and then another one by Caster, then that crossbody. Props to the AEW camera team, because that overhead angle of the turnbuckle is absolutely puts it a whole new perspective of just like the hang time you can do. It was really great stuff. Mox had some explosive offense in this as well, and just his attitude and his body language is a lot of fun to watch. And so, this was a match that really helped delivered, and one I was really looking forward to, and I was happy with it. And the Acclaimed AEW, the Claimed have arrived, baby. Speaking of who else have arrived, another newcomer to the block, Ethan Page, man, and Scorpio Sky's new personas are absolutely just killer. And Sky's great in amongst himself, but Page, he elevated anything we've ever seen of him to date, because we have seen him cut him some promos, but when he started just getting intense in the face of the camera, wow. First off, Sky says that he's step aside saying he's going to put you down. And then Page's final line was that, I will be the nail in your coffin, Darby Allin. So this combo feud was awesome, man. It was something great. Ethan Page, props to him, man. I think promo of the night from Ethan Page on that.
I've been saying it, man. I really think that Ethan Page is going to emerge as a legitimate star in the landscape of AEW. I think this dude has everything. He checks all the boxes, right? I mean, I know that Christian Cage is really the marquee signing that AEW's had in 2021. But to me, when you look at youth, you look at in-ring ability, Ethan Page has the look. The dude looks absolutely chiseled, and he kind of rocks that kind of like flamboyant gear. Like he kind of has like those shirts and stuff that are always kind of funny to see. He oozes confidence. And when you have a promo, like when you have promos like this, right, where it's not just empty trash talk, right? It's not just like a guy who talks a big game, has a big ego, but doesn't have legitimacy behind it. Yeah, like he actually he has that intensity, that underlying intensity to him that really adds that extra oomph and puts him over the top. You know, I love what I saw between him and Scorpio Sky, but when you see the way Ethan literally took the mic, made Tony Schiavone leave, and just dominated that segment. His personality jumps through the screen. I really think that Ethan Page is a guy who is emerging as a legitimate star in this company. And can you imagine? I mean, obviously they've been investing in him. You know what they did, what he's done against Darby, throwing him down that flight of stairs, costing him that TNT title, and now being put into a marquee moment where you get to put him against the former TNT champ and an icon Sting. I mean, you really are in a situation where you could tell we're not alone in what we see in Ethan Page. You could tell TK and the execs in the back, they recognize this
EVPs.
They recognize this dude. The EVPs see
EVP coming through.
Whether it's the vlogs or his stuff that he's doing now on Dynamite with these promos, Ethan Page has it. So I've been calling it week in, week out. I really think that it's only a matter of time before Ethan Page gets a big win or two under his belt, and really people start to notice that, you know, Ethan Page is here to stay. Really big fan of where they're going with him. I'm intrigued at what's going to happen in that match. I think that, you know, Darby and Sting are going to come out on top at Double or Nothing.
I don't know, man. I think you keep. I mean, that's for our preview show.
Let's talk about that down the road. I'm intrigued to hear. I'm intrigued to hear that you and I are on opposite sides. Especially
can't wait to talk to all you guys out there too. The preview show of everyone's picks. So we'll send out like a bingo card or something, and everyone, you know, fill out their picks, and we'll talk. You know, you guys can send us your photos, and we'll share them on the air too. So yes, I can't wait to talk about this one. You know, it was fun at the Derby. This is where the Dark Order kind of blocked them at both ends. I really enjoyed that. This could almost turn into like a lumberjack Dark Order out in the match or something like that. I don't know. This is intertwining very well and coming together very well. So I was happy with this. The promo was unexpected. You know, it wasn't announced tonight. And it was a home run for sure by far. And now we're going to talk about, you know, the feud of AEW, the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle. But first, we're going to talk about the Pinnacle. And by the looks of it, it looks like most of the Pinnacle members do like their steaks medium rare. They like a nice fine red wine. You know, if we saw a well-done steak, Wardlow
definitely likes a nice fine red wine. My man downed the bottle. That was fantastic.
Oh gosh, this is
maybe not as much as Sean Spears though, because Sean Spears is ready to bust someone's face open for not getting
an empty glass, and he was absolutely pissed. And I loved that Tully threw the money to the server like a mob boss. You know, it's like, this should cover it, like a big mob boss. It was like so great. You know, you're a Sopranos fan.
Yeah, he's the made man of this group, right? I mean, Tully is the legend, right? So the Four Horsemen icon, and to kind of throw that wad of cash at the waiter and tell him this will cover it. That was a really nice move. I like that. You're right. Good call.
It was a little thing that you caught. I really like that. And, you know, of course, MJF could do no wrong. That guy is just pure gold. He is the drizzling, you know, he did call us the drizzling shits, which will never live down. No, but he is the drizzling. He is the orange swirly, though. He is the drizzling orange swirly from his spray tan. But once again, just a fire promo. And, you know, Dax cutting a mean promo as well. Like, those two are, as we've said before, Dax, and he knows, is the
workhorseman. He's the workhorseman.
The workhorseman of the Pinnacle, the workhorseman of AEW. Yep. Dax is it. He is the man, period. And a great stash, might I say, and he likes his steak medium rare.
What I like about Dax, and what I like about what's happening with the Pinnacle is obviously like MJF, dude. Like that dude, you could like if you threw a Mad Libs at MJF and told him he needed to cut a promo about like, you know, his peanut butter.
A fork and hand sanitizer.
Yeah, MJF. Yeah, cut a promo about this.
And a red Sharpie.
Yeah. He could cut like a killer promo about whatever, right? Like he's just so good, right? But because of that, you can see the confidence is building in his team. You can tell like the opportunity to talk is there now because you can put a guy like MJF to be the centerpiece of a promo segment, but then allow other guys in that segment to get time. And as an FTR fan, I love seeing Dax emerging as a guy who can cut a hell of a promo, man. Like we love what we see him out of him in the ring. He is the workhorseman of the Pinnacle, and that dude can throw a spine buster that would make Arn Anderson blush. The guy is fantastic at what he does, right? But to see Dax kind of that no nonsense, like old school like promo vibe that you get from a guy like Dax is really nice, man. I love what they're starting to do with him, and I've always been FTR as a team. You can't ever, but you're starting to see Dax kind of emerging too as a guy like, wow, this guy has potential if they ever wanted to give him a little solo run. We've seen some of those great matches that he had with Jericho and Jungle Boy. Dax has it in him, dude. The Dax could do it. I love what they're doing with this whole crew. And I think that, Sean Spears is another guy who's getting an opportunity in a segment like this, not cutting a traditional promo, not going out there in the middle of the ring and having to hold a microphone and carry a promo by himself, but showcasing his character, showcasing his edge, a guy who's at any moment could snap. That's why he's the chairman. He's the guy who cracked I'll always remember that chair shot to Cody. He's that guy. And it showcases a guy who's got that razor thin trigger that at any moment the chairman can strike. Like I like that. I like that where they're leaning into that. I think there's a lot of character work that's emerging in these segments beyond just a promo, and I love what they're doing with that. Now you juxtapose that against the Inner Circle, and we've seen the same thing happen there too, SPD. I mean, talk about, like, obviously I know you are Le Champion, you are the GOAT, you love Jericho, and he's
I'm an Inner Circle guy.
He's as
Inner
good
Circle
of a promo.
squad, Sharonica.
He's as good of a promo as it gets in wrestling. Now, MJF, I loved some of his digs that he made at Jericho and his promo about how, like cracking himself up and the juvenile humor that Jericho likes to lean into. But we've seen the Inner Circle really building stars, right? And Jericho talked about that in his podcast. And I know you have pushed me more and more. I try to listen to Talk with Jericho now every time it comes out because it's such a must listen. Jericho talked about how
the curtain. It's so great.
The Inner Circle really is not just Jericho and his buddies. It's really legitimate stars all come together, right? Like Sammy Guevara, I think we're not alone when we see this kid has some super high ceiling, right? I mean, this guy could emerge as the star that breaks out of the Inner Circle, who could become that top guy. You see, I mean, like if you're a fan of Santana Ortiz, those guys, their work that they did back in Impact, TNA, those guys are pros. And what we've got to see out of Santana and Ortiz on their own with mic work. I mean, Santana is a guy who I think is one of my just has the swagger. He just carries himself like a badass dude.
Does he ever?
I love it. I love what we've seen out of these guys, and even Jake Hager, man. You got to see tonight in that promo. Jake cut a hell of a promo tonight, right?
He's a one scary man for sure, and I love this promo, man. What I'm loving, like honestly, I think what I'm loving the most out of this Inner Circle turn is that all guys are getting to shine, and Ortiz looks like such a badass. Santana looks like such a badass. Another team that you got me just in, full blown on the train of those because they're the best. They're the best. Proud and powerful. But I some of the things, man, I love how they like pass the mic almost essentially, and get their turn. And Jericho's got that awesome smirk and body language. You could just see the wheels turning and what he's ready to do. And, his whole "was it worth it" promo, was it worth it? Was it worth it? I honestly, like I texted you guys, I was hoping they didn't accept this soon, just so they can start to pluck them off one by one, and make Pinnacle agree to their terms versus them agreeing to the Inner Circle's or Pinnacle's terms. So Inner Circle come back with a vengeance and just start putting them away, and then Pinnacle having to force a match, flipping the script essentially. putting the ball back in the Inner Circle's courts. So I loved it, man, how he said he's going to dance all over your face and piss all over your grave, man. Oh,
Jericho always is good for those
Mic
lines.
drop.
Yeah, Jericho will always is good for a line or two that just you'll remember for the rest of the night. I feel like the way this is shaping up makes a lot of sense though, man. Like they won at Blood and Guts, and they did so in a very like underhanded, lousy way. I mean, MJF clearly emerged as the most detested guy in all of professional wrestling for a reason. But I like now it's very fitting. Double or nothing. Double or nothing. The stakes can never be higher for the Inner Circle. If they win this match, it's even up 1-1. And I think that like then you start to allow us to see what happens next, right? You're going to see more of these two going at it because as they've made very clear tonight, I mean, the Inner Circle made it very, very clear. This is not just going to be about one fight and we're done. This is not going to be just about Stadium Stampede, which is going to be fun to watch. I love that we're going to get Stadium Stampede Part 2 at Double or Nothing. That's going to be a great one. Should have brought a
cone in.
Yeah. I can't wait for that. And I think that but they made it very clear, dude. Like they made it clear, even if and when the Inner Circle wins this match at Double or Nothing, it's not over. It's not over. Like we
don't want it to be over.
One of these teams is going to have to fall apart in order for this feud to be over. And I love how personal, what that goal is. SPD, I think that you and I have been worrying about, man, did they rush into Blood and Guts? And are they getting into too much too soon? They made it very clear tonight.
Right.
There's a lot more down the road for us and as fans. This is far from over.
Good.
There's going to be a lot more down the road between these two crews. And I love where that's going to lead to, man. We've talked about it time and again. Sign us up for some Santana Ortiz versus FTR. Sign us up for some MJF versus Sammy. We need to see some of these matchups in a one-on-one. I love the gang warfare, but let's get the teams 1-1, and then, like you said, let's start moving those chess pieces, having those two crews go against each other in a different setting. I really think that there's a lot of meat on the bone for AEW to get at.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is just I hope it's just the bread, not even the appetizer of a 50-course meal for that as well. But,
a little bread and olive oil, and then move on to the steak down the road, the medium rare steak, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking about moving on to just the appetizer before we get to that main event, get to that steak dinner, baby. We got to see Shida versus Rebel in a interesting match tonight. Knowing that this was the first and only time we got to see Shida in the ring leading up to her match against Britt.
Yeah, it's surprising.
How did this hit for you, man?
Well, it did everything it needed to do. I think Shida is better than what happened in this match, but it did everything it needed to do to provide a build for the title match and for Britt to win the title. So I thought Rebel's shenanigans were absolutely hilarious.
Always so funny.
She's getting better and better. The little dance she was doing and the faking of the injury, and then everything she needed to do was perfect. And then mostly, obviously, it was just the lead up to what happened after the match, and it was a short segment. I'm glad they didn't milk this and put it on a picture-in-picture or anything like that. But having Britt stand tall with the title, and then that awesome curb stomp on the title, which was A+.
That was fantastic.
Fantastic way to lead and get us excited for Double or Nothing. And surprisingly, I mean, we won't go too far into Double or Nothing. This is the only women's match on there, and it's going to be the most important because it will be a title change in all of our opinions as of now, unless they throw something on the buy-in show. But this told its story. It had its spot. It had some funny shenanigans, but unfortunately, it didn't do any good for Shida. It just made her look to me like a weaker opponent when I know she's better than that.
That image that you had up there on the screen is all that really mattered in this segment. That's what this was all about.
True.
Right?
I'm not even talking about the match.
We got to see the visual of Britt standing over the fallen champion with the belt in her hand. And that's what it was all about. That's what this segment was. That was the focal point of Rebel versus Sheeta in this matchup.
Right.
That was what AEW was trying to accomplish.
Yep.
It's interesting because I'm like, me, dude. I love me some DMD, and I'm as big of a mark for Britt as it gets.
You don't say.
But
you put a wager on the line. If she loses, you have to do a spray tan.
I have to get a spray tan. That's how confident I am that she's going to win. But all that's being said, I'm going to shock you here. I feel like AEW should have used this opportunity to go the other way. Britt has been firmly established as the top contender. I mean, Britt has a huge following behind her. We know, you and I both know, we're not alone. The DMD bandwagon it's miles deep now. There's people are climbing on board to get on board the DMD Express. And she's, through her pursuit of becoming number one contender, has racked up W after W after W. She's been on fire.
Right.
And she's had every opportunity, whether it's promos, whether it's matches. She's been featured plenty, and she's looked great plenty. I really feel like with Sheeta being so infrequently used on AEW television, they should have leaned into really establishing her as a strong champ. Give Sheeta the respect and the due that she deserves for all that she's done. And leading into Double or Nothing, it would have been powerful to have Sheeta really come triumphant in this segment. I feel like it would have been like fighting Britt and Rebel off, right?
True.
Outsmarting them, so that when Britt wins and has that visual of holding the belt over the champ, it's a moment that, again, has that much more, importance to it, because we as fans, the last visual we had was Sheeta standing triumphant. I think that there's a lot of things that go into that. I personally, and it feels weird saying it, because to me, Britt is the top. I honestly believe Britt is a top 3 star in the entire company, regardless of the division or whatever. I think that Britt is as marketable and bankable of a star in the entire company, segment after segment after segment. But I think that they needed to lean into showcasing Sheeta in a more positive light leading into Double or Nothing. We've seen so little of our champ, and you've been talking about that, SPD. I know that I'm preaching to the choir here, dude. Like, you have been saying over and over again, where is our champion? Where is, the division needs to be represented by the champ. Where is she? And
we're
now
5 months in, and I think she's 3-0, 4-0.
Yeah, we finally had an opportunity to see Sheeta in the ring, and it just, yes, she won, but it just, the visual at the end is Britt standing tall over her and stomping her face into the belt. It's just like,
true.
I don't know. I have more respect for Sheeta as an in-ring competitor than that. I think that she, even though we haven't had a chance to see her a lot, every time I see Sheeta in the ring, I think that she's a fighting. She's got that warrior spirit. I love her striking. I just think it would have been a nice touch to kind of reestablish Sheeta as the champ for a reason, and have her look convincing and dominant heading into the Double or Nothing, rather than looking this vulnerable. I don't know, especially if they're going to do what I hope they do, and that's transition the belt over to Britt.
They will, but like in the chat, they're doing that Sheeta celebration next week for her longest title run, so they're going to do it fresh, 2 days before. But yes, I agree. I think it would have been keep the dominance running, so you have a more shocking finish when the titles do change. But it did tell the story. It was a short segment. Unfortunate, but we'll get the high note. Not
even unfortunate, right? Just maybe an interesting decision, right? Because it's not unfortunate. It went well. It's true. The visual, again, I think that they're definitely testing the waters of Britt Baker, how the crowd's going to react. And for those people who were there live at Double or Nothing or at Dynamite tonight, I have a feeling there were some pops. Although like everybody loves Sheeta as champ, there were some cheers for Britt. I want to see what the reaction will be at Double or Nothing in front of a jam-packed, crowd. If she's going to get the pop that I think she's going to get. We'll see.
Well, speaking of pop, we need to pause for a unsponsored sponsorship of Gillette Venus. So if anyone has any pubic hair they need to clean up, AEW has a nice sponsorship of Gillette Venus, and they like to make you sure they're usually the last commercial before they come back to break. So if you guys missed that tonight, Gillette Venus, make sure you want to have a nice pubic hair line. So, and AEW, what better combo and sponsorship of that?
That's one of our like that is like a staple on Dynamite now is the Venus pubic hair commercials. It's absolutely hilarious, and it's such a shame that it always seems to come at the most inopportune times.
Literally, the last commercial before they come back.
I know, man. It's hilarious. They definitely are tapping in. They know that, wrestling fans, you guys got to get out there. You got to clean your pubic hair up.
It is beach season. It is bikini season. It is, swimsuit season. Get those cleaned up, man. And I'm sure, speaking of swimsuit season, we have EVP coming through. Watch out. EVP coming through. I loved when Kenny Omega is starting to live that up, as we transition out of the sponsorship that's not sponsoring the show. This was a longer than expected segment, but I really told a fun story. A ton of fun story, trying to promote OC as the mascot of AEW.
That was a funny line.
So this is a nice touch that they added because obviously OC was a little bit hurt and in all this. So it's making it more and more meaningful and more exciting to see OC kind of maybe stick it to Callis, maybe ringside, or stick it to Kenny, get his run. So another one of the many promos we saw tonight, including your buddy, the Bastard Pac, which man. I absolutely loved when he said, "You'll find out what a fool gets when they bet against the bastard."
You love just like I love like. The bastard could like say anything, and just the way he delivers it is just absolutely like intense. It just gives you the shivers, man. The guy is a badass. But this promo, this segment between Don Callis, Kenny Omega, and Orange Cassidy, it literally had me laughing out loud at moments. Kenny and Don Callis, the way they were leaning into like. We got to protect you, little, as the executives, and like you said, that line about. Being a mascot for AEW, not a champion. Like that was a nice dig, a very nice little dig. I thought was really funny. But I also like my favorite moment where Orange Cassidy just slowly, as slowly as possible, ripping that piece of paper in half. Yeah. That literally got me to laugh out loud, man. I was loving that. That was so funny. But when you think about it, SPD, they're not going to pivot away from this, right? Unless Orange Cassidy is genuinely as injured as what we heard coming out of last week's show. Right. Because Don Callis and and Kenny, the way that they phrased this contract was you can get a title match against Kenny on your own at any point down the road. I don't know. I thought that was an interesting segment. Comedy aside, when you look at and observe it, maybe it's in Orange Cassidy's best interest to let Pac and Kenny go at it. Oh
my gosh, talk about dream match.
Yeah, brother, you know it. To allow those guys to go head to head and then heal up, rest up, get better, and face Kenny down the road in a one-on-one title match. I don't know. I think that the way that it was presented. Yeah. Removing the comedy aside was actually pretty interesting. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. Right. I think that this triple threat match is going to be so good. I love that, the dynamics that like we've talked about. Me, I love the intensity of the Bastard. I love the ego and really delivering to being the best bout machine by Kenny. And then the way that Orange Cassidy fits in this match, they're leaning into that. They're really leaning into him being discarded, kind of overlooked by these other two competitors. Right. And I like how he can fit into that matchup and kind of sneak in his offense and surprise these guys with what he can do. And you've talked about it, SPD. After the work that was done to establish Orange Cassidy as a top guy by Jericho in that feud, for him to be overlooked going into this match by Pac and Kenny, and then to come out emerging as a peer to the top two guys in the world, that would go a long way in pushing OC back in the front and center of our minds as a legitimate, superstar in the landscape of AEW. I think that would be a really nice way to end that match. He's the guy who would get a huge rub if he's given that chance to kind of look like an equal to those guys. And I think that's the way they're going to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited for the triple threat. I think it protects people and keeps it very interesting. And correct me if I'm wrong, is this the first triple threat we've had, or what other triple threat have we had before in AEW? If anyone knows in the chat, please let us know. But because I know they've kind of steered away from that. We've had multi-tag team matches, but I don't know if we've had a triple threat. But we can look into that.
I mean, it certainly stands out. It certainly stands out as like
it's been the first triple threat main event for sure.
Premier, for the title. I mean, this is a big stakes match. And I think that the way that they're playing into it, man, when you combine these promos and you look at the way that the build has gone, we had some questions on who was going to emerge as the clear-cut contender to Kenny, given that we think that this is going to be the year of the belt collector, right? This is going to be the year of the best bout machine. This is a really nice way for AEW to lean into that, not having a clear-cut number one contender, and still protecting all people involved, right? I think that, there's going to be more leaving this match. There's going to be segments of the audience like me who are going to want to see Pac versus Kenny in a one-on-one environment, right? And Pac talked about it at length in his promo. I mean, he hit hard on how he's sick and tired of being overlooked and having opportunities taken away from him. This is a guy who had that match won against Orange Cassidy, and then Kenny came in and got those cheap shots from behind in that match and really threw that match out. Pac versus Kenny is a match that I think the world would be blessed to see as far as work rate goes, intensity. Like that would be a home run match on its own. Then there's going to be another segment of the audience that's going to want to see Orange Cassidy versus Kenny in a one-on-one setting, right? You get it. Like, I think that OC clearly has a huge following, hilarious and great character work, but oftentimes is underappreciated and underrated from an in-ring perspective. The way, and you and I talk a lot about how important of an art it is to sell. Yeah. And OC is a guy who his opponents always look so freaking good after their matches with him, because the dude just, the way that he takes offense, and like when you juxtapose his chill, like laid back vibe, and then like you see him like finally getting fired up after like all the beating that he'll take, it's a beautiful thing. He can tell a lot of great stories in his matches. And just imagine Kenny Omega, the guy who's famous for fighting a broom, going, the guy like going against Orange Cassidy and having kind of almost treating it as a joke and having like that aesthetic play out where Orange Cassidy scares Kenny, gets a couple close near falls, really pushes the best guy on the planet. It would be, I don't know. I think there's a lot to like there at going those two separate routes down the road.
That very well said, man. Very well said. And I know this next match, you have a lot to say. A little teaser for later in our show at the end for our top performer potentially. But it was great to see Dee back, and we got the fortunate to see her last match live back in mid-February.
It's Rio. And
just watching her live was just so strategic, so methodical, so fast paced, and so like. She's small, and Velvet is small. Like in the ring, like seeing like the scale of the ring, what she can do with her size is really incredible. She came out hot, and just the intensity is just showing how much we missed her and how valuable she is to the division and women's wrestling overall. It was really great, high energy match. all her holds were awesome. I liked how her shirt about the 1,000 holds. And at the end, we almost saw like a mini heel turn in a way. Just the brutal, the nonstop knee smashing to do almost whatever it would have taken. Whatever it was going to take to put down Red Velvet. And Red Velvet's high spots are always fun to watch. Her being another small person who can really get some nice high spots. And Thunder Rosa talked about how high she is on Red Velvet when we interviewed her. But this was one of the best we've seen Deeb. And really, like, when you put her in the ring, like, who could stop someone like that?
I love Serena Deeb, dude. I
let you have the floor now.
No, I mean, I've been saying it for a long time. I know that she gets a lot of Dean Malenko comparisons and things like that because she's such a technician, but I've been saying it for a long time. She reminds me of Bret Hart. Old school, as an old school wrestling fan, she reminds me a lot of Bret Hart. And it's not just because of the excellence of execution moniker. It's because Bret had those moments, and even during his babyfaces runs, he had those moments where he would get nasty in matches. He would take down a guy's knee pad and really work over their knee. He would do things like that made you feel like this is a dude who wants desperately, more than anything, to win. And that's what I see with Serena Deeb. This is a woman who approaches every match she's in with that intensity and that drive to win at all costs. And that's what I loved about, the rumors about like, her ring rust and things like that. Immediately she went after Red Velvet. When this match started, just immediately went after her and wouldn't. And you said it. She showed an edge in this match. It was very clear, Deeb doesn't lean into babyface or heel very often. She's just kind of that neutral character. She is who she is. She's the champ. She takes on all comers. But she adapted in this match, and it was very obvious that the crowd was behind the AEW homegrown, that AEW underdog, that scrappy babyface in Red Velvet. We've talked about it time and again. Thunder Rosa, the first person she talked about when we talked to her, Red Velvet is a babyface through and through that people want to get behind. She shows that fire in her belly, that never say die attitude that's so easy to get behind. So knowing that, Deeb played off that natural aesthetic, played off the crowd cheering on Velvet, was more than happy to lean into that nastiness, that edge that she has in this match, and it came out through and through. Deeb was not here to play. She was here to remind everyone why she is the NWA Women's Champion, why she's beaten Riho, Thunder Rosa. You name it, Deeb has done it. And why she gets those comparisons. I mean, again, there is no higher praise than you could heap on a technical wrestler than to say that they remind you of Bret Hart. And I just think that when I look at Deeb and I see the way that she approaches professional wrestling and I see the way that she approaches each match, she has that. Yes, she's got that technical side of her, but SPD. There is something that you could really tell. She's not going through the motions. It reminds me of when we talked about this very early on in Dynamite Download history. We had to see Deeb come out, and her matches are fought with an urgency and a purpose that is really refreshing. When you watch, there's so much pro wrestling out there, dude, and there are so many matches where it feels like they're going through the motions, or they're working to the next spot, or they're just they like. There's none of that with Deeb. It feels like a fight with her. It feels like she's under. I love that about the way she approaches her matches. I am a huge Serena Deeb fan. I think that Serena Deeb, and you look at the landscape of women's wrestling and what AEW is able to present to us as fans, they have come such a long way from where they started, dude. And a big part of that is because of their partnership with NWA. We have to give credit where credit is due. Between Mission Pro Wrestling, we see NWA, they got that helped us get Thunder Rosa. Thunder Rosa then has brought in tons of talent from Mission Pro Wrestling. Serena Deeb has emerged as truly, I feel like the cornerstone, the talent. When you want to see someone go toe to toe and have a professional wrestling match, you throw them in the ring with Serena Deeb, and they will get tested. So I think that this division has come so far from the beginning, from where it started. And Red Velvet is another great example of that story too. Someone who was known for last year a massive losing streak
Yeah.
is now somebody who is a legitimate title contender, somebody who has a major following in the internet wrestling community, and someone who has clearly established themselves as somebody that at any given point in time could get a title shot and be a believable women's champion. So I love what they've done. They've built a lot of stars. This match was my favorite. I mean, to me, this was my favorite match of the night. These two delivered and then some. It was just like, this is one of those matches where I want to go back and watch again. There were commercials in it and things like that. I want to catch the nuances of the performance. Dude, some of those corkscrews to the leg were absolutely brutal. I mean, the way that these two fought each other, so crisp, so smart, without question, one of my favorite matches in the women's division in the calendar year of 2021. Thought it was that good.
Wow. That is a high praise from Crayfish himself for sure. And speaking of being that good, we're going to talk about the Factory being that good. This was a short match, another one that just kind of led up and told a quick story to what's more the bigger picture at Double or Nothing. But I loved Cody coming out with the flag on his back and then Go bringing his flag out. But, we've said it before, and Go is a star. He talking about having it, and he's got it. And does he ever? The swagger, the look, the anger, the dominance in the ring. But, give props where props are due. Austin Gunn, his energy level was awesome.
Yep.
His
no surprise to anybody who watches Dynamite.
True. Yeah. He's an A+ on Instagram Live, or Instagram stories for AEW. His energy level is awesome in the ring. He sold very well. I really loved the little part where he grabbed the ref's arm and stopped him from ringing the bell. And he's like, I'm going to continue this fight. I'm going to continue this fight after taking 2 punches to the gut, bleeding from the mouth. But I absolutely loved what I saw from Go, the Factory. He didn't do much, but what he did was powerful. And it was what you need in a star, what you need in an absolute badass, what you need in the Factory, continuing to push them being. And, Go responded to us on Twitter. We had a nice interaction with him and QT. Like, it was a very thoughtful response and, kind of pulled back the curtain how much he was there for him, especially during all the COVID stuff. So check our Twitter if you haven't seen it, the response from Go on it. But yeah, this was great, man. Go, I am huge fan of Go. And I know you are a QT Marshall fan, so we all are, but
yeah, I've been digging the Factory from the get-go. I'm glad to hear you kind of talking up Go. I think that the dude has emerged as a very genuine. He is who he is, and he doesn't apologize for it. And I like that about him. He on social media, he comes off as a very intelligent, thoughtful. He just a very deep person, honestly. I don't know how else to put it. He comes off and he's willing to share a side of him that I feel like not a lot of pro athletes do. I respect that a lot. His interactions with the fans and things like that. He just comes off as just a very thoughtful person. And you combine an intelligent guy like that with a guy who can then do what he could do in the ring, like physically. Oof. You have something, bro. I mean, you have something there that we saw very early on, man. Like from the beginning, Go has that it factor, and it's very important when you look at it on an international scale that the AEW can tap into marketplaces outside of the U.S. And I think that what they're, although I feel like this U.S. UK thing is very unneeded, very unnecessary in the landscape of the feud. Personally, I feel like the Factory versus the Nightmare Family was a feud that had enough fire to it that didn't
Right.
need all this noise about patriotism and nationalism. And I think more than anything, it's just divided the fan base, and it's made people turn on Cody a little bit. That because I know it's a very in vogue thing to hate on your own country in America, but we're not like that here. But I think that
We'll say that for another time.
I've seen that a lot. I've seen that a lot on social media. I just think that like the UK versus USA thing wasn't really needed.
Right.
I think that the feud between the Nightmare Family and the Factory had a lot of juice to it, and I'm hoping that what happens at Double or Nothing, QT, my man QT Marshall, gets involved in some way, shape, or form, and kind of refocuses this feud again on the very personal side of things, where, as Anthony pointed out in our conversation with him, this is a personal thing for the Factory. Cody gets all the love as this like great guy and the leader of the training facility down there and all this stuff. But Anthony really talked a lot about how QT is the coach. He's the guy who, through thick and thin, through travel restrictions and all these things, he was the one who was checking in on him. He was the one who was making sure that Anthony knew, like, hey, man, you're a star. We know that once you get through this stuff, you're going to have a place here. And I feel like that family dynamic of the Factory and like them breaking away, that will be the focus coming out of Double or Nothing. That said, man, Anthony Ogogo, dude, like the beating that he gave to Austin Gunn tonight, leaving that kid bloody and just defeated in the middle of the ring. I have a feeling that that's going to be a visual that we see a lot going forward in Anthony Ogogo matches. This dude is the type of guy that is going to leave a trail of just beatings in his path. I don't see him losing to Cody at Double or Nothing, bro. I know that that's maybe a spoiler for our pre-show, but I just see that the way that this guy is trending, they have something with Anthony Ogogo. They have a potential breakout superstar, and we know what Cody. Right. We know Cody. We know that dude is more than willing to use his spot to elevate other talent. This is a huge opportunity. I mean, I'm firmly on the Factory side. I even have the bowling shirt to prove it. I'll bust it out. I'll be rooting
this Friday. Bring it out this Friday, bro.
I'll be rooting for QT Marshall and his crew.
Ogogo is gonna win. Period. I mean, Cody will put him over. He's got too much of a good star and a good story with Ogogo to not get a push out of that. And it's essentially kind of trading wins. Cody put down QT, their leader. Now Ogogo is gonna be like the beast that can be unstoppable of the Factory. So I think that this is what's great. It's booking booked as a monster, which is perfect. Exactly perfect what you said. And I completely agree. So Cody's going to get put down. He's going to get knocked out. He's going to get dragged out. He's going to be left there. And it's going to be great. A good push for the Factory for sure, man.
The visual of Ogogo standing tall over a bloody Cody, I don't know, man. That could be something.
I hope. I mean, if you really want to get some massive, massive heat, you do something bad with the flag. So
yeah.
I noticed that Cody was quick to grab it before it touched the ground. Obviously, you do never want to disrespect the flag by putting that on the ground, but maybe he does something really disrespectful and he would get some massive heat out of that. So I'm not for defacing the flag ever. America pride for sure, in the country, but I think that is something you could incorporate, but I don't know how low you want to go.
Ogogo's been leaning into that quite a bit in his promos, and I know Cody's promo got a lot of attention with his patriotism about the states, but people who are paying attention to what Ogogo's been talking about since his debut, they see. I mean, he's been talking about this country is crap. I'm only here to make money. I mean, all the stuff that he's been really leaning into his in typical UK fashion. Right. I work for a guy who is a Brit, and they just kind of have that natural they were the first empire of the world, type of thing. They think that that the world didn't exist before the UK Empire type of thing, and they just kind of have that kind of the royal hierarchy thing with the king and the queen and all that. They just kind of it's just a natural part of being a Brit, and I don't think that's a bad thing. They know that like they know their country's awesome. They know that like that they really like ushered in a whole new era to the Western world. So no, I don't know, man. I think it's very interesting. I think that there's going to be. I think that they're already showing they're leaning into that SPD. They're not going to pull the foot off the gas at this point. Anthony Ogogo is going to be doing something. He's going to do something that is going to be get him some heat for sure.
And speaking of countries, I mean, we heard from, excuse my language, the Bulgarian bitch, as the Murder Hawk monster said. But no, the new TNT champion. Miro, which we are all for, absolutely loved the way this panned out. This guy is an absolute monster. He cut a pure fire promo, man. Everyone was just on point.
Tonight's show was awesome, man.
I mean, it like I said, Ethan Page did the best, but the more I'm thinking about each one, like, Jericho, MJF, Miro, Lance, like, gosh, man, full of just polished fire promos on the night. And Miro, man, this is, we saw the announcement a few days ago, Miro versus the Murdoch Lance Archer, which is like a Dynamite download, almost dream matchup.
That's what I was saying. That's got Bonds' favorite versus yours. Like, that's going to be
battle of the monsters for sure. Oof. I love Miro, but I am 100% a Murder Hawk man, Murder Hawk madness all the way. So like I said on our show last week, I didn't want this rushed. I don't want the Murder Hawk and Miro rushed. So, like, for either one to take a clean loss like this soon is like, oh, man, it's going to be tough. But it's going to be an absolute amazing match, amazing physical match. And just, like, talk about two pure A-plus stars in the industry in AEW going head-to-head, the Murder Hawk Monster and Miro, the Bulgarian, So, I'm excited for it. But I just don't want any steam loss for either guy right now.
That's the hard part. I think that all of us recognize that, this is going to be this is a tough one to book, right? Because like it almost feels like they're booked in a corner, right. we desperately want to see this match. Don't get us wrong. Like, of course, seeing the Murder Hawk and Miro go head to head, that's a dream come true, man. That's two athletic big men, right? I mean, like that. I was talking about on Twitter, man. There's no way. Like JR is going to be so fun to listen to as like commentating this match, because there's nothing better that JR loves than an athletic big hoss battle, dude. Like, so these two, this is going to be a war. These two are going to go at each other. They're going to tear each other up. It's so hard to see who loses this one, right? Like Miro. He can't lose. Miro can't lose, right? And then, like, in Murder Hawk, like, I feel like Lance even acknowledged his history in his promo tonight. Like he came up short in his last conquest for the TNT title against Cody. It's like, do you have Lance come up short again? I feel like we all here, especially Dynamite Download, but like I see it on social. Like the Murder Hawk, the fans want to see Lance with a belt. Like, he deserves a run, especially with where he's at in his career.
Murder Hawk deserves it all, man.
The guy is like doing everything that you could have asked for. I mean, you rewind the clock to January this year, you see some of those with those matches with Ray Phoenix and like Eddie Kingston, like that whole dynamic was absolutely amazing. And Lance Archer, what that guy can do in the ring is second to none. I mean, he's a big dude who can do backflip off the top rope and who could choke slam you through the ring. We love it. And I thought it was interesting tonight. Like Miro was saying his prayers and things like that. And like, one of the things that I love about Lance Archer's promos is how he like always leans into his faith. And like, he'll talk a lot about, he'll bring like the hellfire and brimstone, like the Revelation style promos. Like you listen to some of his stuff, man, like he's definitely leaning into that. So I think that these two guys and their promo battle tonight was awesome. I felt like both guys who are not necessarily known for being promo guys, both had great promos. They both cut promos on each other.
Fantastic promos.
Miro had some funny lines with Jake the Snake and, putting him,
putting him
down. Yeah. right? Like there was some good stuff tonight between these two guys. I feel like maybe this isn't just a one-off match between these two. Maybe this is something that is building to an overarching feud between these guys, because I feel like this is a feud that could make money, man. These are two big fellas that would be a lot of fun.
The main event feud that can main event any show, any pay-per-view, period. And I think there's just not enough build to it. And I think with a card so stacked as Double or Nothing is right now, it's almost a mistake to rush this. But obviously, we can fantasy book this, but the greater picture, they see something more than we do, because behind the scenes, this would be kind of like an exception where I feel like they just beat each other so much. It's almost just like I hate to even say it, like a double count out or something.
You hate like the
time,
non-finish. You hate the non-finishes.
A non-finished finish would work with this. This is where I would actually support it, so we can further the feud. You know, a quick win or a clean finish almost doesn't preserve the feud as much as a non-finish.
Yeah, so, I agree. I hear you.
This is the place I would support it.
Yeah, and there could be something to do with like Jake in this match too. Like just listening to the promos and the way that Miro like said, you know, if Jake gets close to me, you know, I'm going to put him down, that type of stuff. Like that, there could be something to do with that, because there's been a lot of, you know, I know that there's been a lot of small clues along the way of like maybe some distrust or some like not necessarily being harmonious between Jake and the Murder Hawk. There's been some like with the Sting stuff, you know, I feel like Lance has challenged Jake a little bit more and pushed back on Jake a little bit more since the advice he received from Sting. So I don't know. Maybe there's something. Maybe Miro gets his hands on Jake, and that causes Murder Hawk to go off. Maybe there's a disqualification. Something like, who knows? But I'm with you. I think that like this is one of those matches that quickly came on the landscape, quickly got booked. We're all very excited to see it. But
right.
My initial reaction was, man, let this thing simmer, guys. Let it simmer. You got to let this baby simmer. You got to let this thing stew for a little while. This is such one of those matches where I know SPD, you talk about it. This could be a main event type of feud, right? These are two absolute powerhouses that I think are going to put on a clinic. They're going to be throwing each other. I can't wait to see like Miro. The visual we saw of him dominating Darby like he did, and then now we got the announcement that he's going to go against Dante Martin of Top Flight. Yeah. You know, you're putting Miro in these situations where he's literally just going to massacre the person he's against, just tossing them around, like treating them like they're a sack of potatoes, right? Just tossing them like they're nothing.
Yeah, R.I.P. Dante.
When he goes head to head with the Murder Hawk, a guy who's like 6'8" and, you know, athletic as it gets, like it's just going to be like just two absolute freight trains going at each other. And I'm going to be curious to see how that changes their styles in the ring and how they interact with each other. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, I agree, man. This is a pure gold feud, like we said, main event. And speaking of main event, let's talk about the main event as we close things out here, episode 35. We'll talk about the main event, our top performers, and then give you a little preview for Friday Night Flights and Fights. But Young Bucks with their danglies, with their Diors that are no longer theirs because they are gone. You know, Eddie Kingston has stolen the shoes, Mox. They got themselves a new $10,000 pair of shoes right there. Young Bucks versus the number one ranked Varsity Blondes, which I'm still growing my hair out to join, be the trios with them. We had the privilege to interview Griff Garrison a few months back. If you haven't checked it out, check it out on our YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. Great interview, great guy, really, you know, excited, has shared the ring with so many top performers. I mean, everyone you can imagine that you'd ever dream of sharing the ring with in AEW, he's done it in this short amount of time of being in AEW. But Young Bucks, we were texting back and forth like what was going to be the main event. And honestly, I didn't think this would have been the main event, but it makes sense overall in the picture to close it out with the nasty heel dangly Young Bucks. Thankfully, we didn't see the Good Brothers and Eddie Kingston and Moxley really setting up a match we knew was coming, but wasn't officially announced till tonight. the tag team title match at Double or Nothing. But Griff Garrison looked great tonight. The Varsity Blondes are coming together as an awesome team. Garrison splashes and spears, and over the whole first part of the match was such high energy, and they really gelled great together. These four guys, these two teams worked very well together, and you can tell the comfort level of the relatively newly formed Varsity Blondes. Their gimmick is great. We talked about an interview of getting varsity jackets, and finally, it's nice to see them. So this match was main event worthy for sure. Obviously, we know Young Bucks aren't losing the titles for a while, potentially Double or Nothing. We don't know, but this was high energy, what we wanted, good storytelling, what we love, and Young Bucks Lane knocked out barefoot. Left us all smiling as it went off the air.
That's like the end with Kingston stealing those Dior's was so freaking funny. I love what you said there about the way that this one emerged with Griff Garrison and I think Brian Pillman both looking fantastic in this match, and I think that goes with a lot of credit to the Bucks. These guys consistently through their run have given a lot of teams opportunities to get shine. And, this had to be a moment where Brian Pillman and Griff Garrison were pinching themselves to what an opportunity to main event, go again for the tag titles, go against the Young Bucks, guys that they admire. Absolutely incredible way that both these guys looked awesome. Griff's I know he talked a lot about it in his interview with us about he's practicing his leaping, and man, did he ever get some ups when he jumped over the top rope. He looked fantastic in this match.
Yeah, man.
Even going early on, I got to say Brian Pillman, his promo that he cut, Garrison and Brian, their promo that they cut earlier on in the match or earlier on in the show was on point. You could tell there was some genuine emotion. It just hit all the right notes. I felt like Brian carried that one in a lot of ways. I was really impressed by the way how mature he came off in that one, and just how that he set the stage for the main event. The look that the Varsity Blondes have right now, you and I have talked about it. We love what they're doing right now. The matching gear, the jackets are a nice touch, really put them over the edge, over the top as far as kind of feeling like a cohesive team. But I feel like the Bucks, week in, week out, they always find a way, put on fantastic matches. These guys they continue to set the bar. And in this one, they allowed a young team, an up and coming team like the Varsity Blondes, to look fantastic. Now, the way that they're winning right now with their dirty tactics and the cold spray in the face and stuff like that, controversial, right? I mean, they're definitely leaning into a lot of these heel tactics, and they're definitely playing into that heel vibe. And it's easy to hate the Bucks right now. I'm not gonna lie. Even as a tag team fanboy and a fan of theirs, man, they are really leaning into they're hitting all the right notes as far as being this detestable tag team, whether it's how stupid they look with their gear every week. They're incredibly over the top cheating and heel tactics in the matches themselves. You want to see them get their comeuppance, and having them go against a violent, badass team like Moxley and Kingston is going to be an interesting way, because we've seen so much of the Bucks run right now has been them leaning into this showmanship and kind of over the top, almost toying with their opponents, bragging throughout the matches, being very nonchalant about taking these matches seriously.
Over the top, faking, overly,
that's gonna change.
Tripping and weird,
Double or Nothing. They're gonna be tested. When you go against Moxley and Kingston, the jokes end. So it's gonna be a really interesting match, and I think it's gonna be a very a clash of the Bucks are gonna have their backs to the wall. Are they gonna what are they gonna do to come out on top on that one? I'm very intrigued by it. That said, man, Varsity Blondes, where they go from here, it's going to be, clearly they showed out in the main event. I think that these guys, these young kids, got a lot like on the line in the future, man. These guys have a bright future ahead of them for sure. Could definitely see them as future tag team champs down the road.
Oh, dude, for sure. I mean, it's fun to see, and Eddie Kingston's going to be a rich man very soon with these kicks in there right there. So
yes,
thank you for sending that, Sharonica. Thank you.
Yeah,
But as we wrap things up, our top performers. Let us know in the chat who your top performer is. Crayfish doesn't know mine, but my top performer of the night was Anthony Agogo. I'm sure you could tell by the way I was talking about him.
Wow.
But, obviously he didn't have the best wrestling match, but he looked the best to me, like just in developing his character, developing his presence, developing his monsterness. So that is SPD's top performer, Anthony Agogo, the governor, who's going to put down Cody Rhodes at Double or Nothing. That is SPD's pick on that. And I think the sky is the absolute limit with him and the factory. All for it, man. And do not send a fist our way.
I love the pick. And you mentioned it, nailed his character work tonight and came out looking like $1 million. For me, it was without a doubt. I felt like Deeb and Velvet had the match of the night. I thought that those two absolutely tore the house down. I am such a fan of Serena Deeb's in-ring work.
Right.
I think that she's second to none. I honestly so to me, it was so nice to see her back.
For sure.
I've missed Serena Deeb a lot, and I think she's a huge part of what women's wrestling, the landscape of women's wrestling right now. I think that Deeb is as good as it gets. So big fan of what she did tonight. Think that she, I'm intrigued to see how AEW utilizes her moving forward. NWA certainly has a absolutely phenomenal champion on their hands.
Oh, of course. And, she's a great addition to the division, and we can't wait for that. So, speaking of, in 2 short days, Friday Night Fights is back with the trios, the Dynamite Download Squad. We can't wait to talk to you. We're going to talk about, we'll break down next week's special Friday Dynamite. We'll talk about our week ahead of a busy weekend of some shows we're doing, our Double or Nothing preview show. It won't be a preview show this Friday, but sometime next week we're going to do a nice preview show. Like I said earlier, we'll get your guys' feedback, put your guys' picks on the screens as well when we go through the cards. That'll be some fun. And head into the weekend this Friday. Make sure you grab some cold ones. Join us with some questions. We want to answer your questions. You can send us some DMs, or we'll put them on Twitter. We'll answer all your questions. We got a few topics, but we want this to really be a good interactive weekend Friday night. So please send us topics to discuss. We really want to dive deep. And thank you guys so much for the support, as always. We love seeing you guys chat in the chat room. We love interacting with you guys online, and all the support you guys give us every single day keeps us going. We appreciate it. And we will see you all Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with Crayfish, Booking by Bonds, and SPD. Sponsored by Pubic Hair Removal, Gillette Venus.